Yeah, that was interesting. Ben was just asking us about a few things about, I guess, the musician's journey, and then you were talking about this thing about the spiritual journey. This is all off camera. This may be my interest in music and meaning and spirit and so on. Do you want to kick us off? I've got so much that I'm just thinking from personally. I just kind of want to say almost that. I remember that, it's interesting that when you first kind of start talking about music and stuff, I can remember that certain songs, hearing it and just kind of being arrested. I can remember some key points. I remember first hearing the song Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush. Actually, before that, we had an album by Bob Marley, Exodus. And I remember we always used to play the album, I always used to play the album the other way around, that side B first, and it started with the song Jamming, and I'd just be like, as a kid, 6 or 7, dancing around, just because it just made me do that. And I remember being a teenager and hearing the song called Life's What You Make It by Talk Talk, and knowing that there's something very profound about that. Life's what you make it, celebrate it. There's something about music. I remember being a teenager listening to certain albums and just being awash with the emotion about certain songs and certain pieces of music that to wallow in certain emotions and so on. I know when I was a singer and a writer in my 20s, I remember that my songs would always be about life and exploring life and meaning and so on. And only now as a coach I kind of realise, that spiritual kind of journey was there very much. It's absolutely there. If somebody was to, I often say, is that somebody wanted to know about me, that you only need to listen to the music. You only really need to, and you kindly did a review of the album, the collection of stuff I did, songs from the soul.
Right.
And I kind of put them in the order sequentially in terms of my own consciousness development. The first song's called Be Something, I think that the first song's called Soulmate, and the next song, Be Something, it's about somebody's trying to make something and become something. Then the other songs are far more, okay, you've got to live before you die and experience life, and that was an extraordinary experience of that song that I may have shared with you. Was one of the few times that there was almost a channeling going on. I was asleep, and I shared this before, but I was asleep, and in my head I could hear Stevie Wonder singing this song.
Right.
And him singing it amazingly, not like I've sung it.
right.
Just amazing, in a higher octave, probably an octave higher. Years are going to crawl and then fly by. The first and last they'll do for you, it's cry. It's up to you what you will do meanwhile. Let's live before we die. Woke up, going through my head all the Stevie Wonder songs. Oh my goodness, there's something. Putting down tape and that. There's something very spiritual about music. And there's something about that spiritual journey. I certainly know for me, it's been part of that kind of evolution and finding self. And I always found that my music was always kind of one step ahead of me. I always feel as though my songs were, or the very first song I wrote was called More to Life Than This.
Right.
So I'd love to know your view as somebody who's studying this and passionate about that, and as a musician too. What's your take on this? Because this is your whole realm of
well, you mentioned life. I think before you said something about life being a dance, or about music being a dance, and I think it's very much like that in a spiritual way, that you have music or art, and sometimes it takes place and it dances with you, and in a way it leads you in that spiritual journey. You may like a piece of music or say, this is really profound, and you may not know why you're listening to it, why you like it, or why you wrote.
Quite right. Ben and I, Ben was humming this morning.
Really?
Ben was behind the camera, was sat in my Your Life, Your Business workshop, and he was humming, and I just heard literally just a bar or two, and he was humming Redemption Song by Bob Marley. I said, is that the Redemption Song by Bob Marley? That's one of the last songs I sang, and one of my favourite songs to sing. And there you have an example of it. Virtually the last song on the last album recorded by an artist that almost sums up all of his entire body of work, and it sums up a lot of the human kind of struggle. Personally, whole ethnicity and lots of those kinds of that redemption and finding self and expressing of life and so on. Isn't it really extraordinary, this dance that music does?
Yeah, and I see almost everywhere now, it seems like this theme of redemption, salvation is, and I hope it's not my own projection of it, but because that often happens. Whatever you interpret, whatever you create, you have a bit of yourself always, in that. But I see this redemption, salvation everywhere. Just I'll use Coltrane again. The most famous piece or album that people know him for is "A Love Supreme," which is his devotion to God, and it's 4-part piece. The first one is acknowledgement, which is his acknowledgement of the divine. The second part is resolution, the resolution to pursue it. And the third part is pursuance, which is the actual act of pursuing the spiritual divine entity and gaining the spiritual peace. And the fourth one is psalm, the actual attainment of it. And I think that's kind of, in a way, all artists, in a sense, and all great, you know, Van Gogh, you see this, they're almost the outcasts of society. They feel themselves in their own accounts that they feel different, they feel out of the mix somehow. And there is a struggle in some way to feel at one, to find a unified self, because there are, you know, often there's like a shatteredness that they feel where they're in pieces and they're trying to build it up, and somehow through the art they can almost put it back together again, or trying to put it back together. And again, I think with Coltrane, it's you know, in A Love Supreme, it does it beautifully. You know, that pursuance of trying to find oneself, sort of becoming spiritually whole, and it kind of extends outside of music as well to, you know, people just wanting to find a career that they're able to be fulfilled in.
Very much so. I was just about to say, I think I so agree. You know, the phrase that's in my mind a lot is this: sing your song. And I say to people, you know, finding your note, playing that note, singing that song, being it in the world. And I guess for lots of singers, musicians, that certainly music, whilst they're doing it, or moments when they're present, can be healing. Very often, if they get lost in the noise outside, then they can kind of forget how healing that is. And I guess for lots of us in our own lives, music will just, in some way, be along that path, or have pointers that's available for us along that path, or to soothe us, or heal us, or to call us back to self in some...
Almost, yeah, it's almost like when you go bowling, if you have the bumpers up, you know, like if it kind of like keeps you on, it can keep you on path. I mean, there's also perhaps a dangerous realm too, if you listen to certain types of music that might accentuate negative feelings and maybe bring you even further, but the hope is that, it helps to guide you and point you in the right direction.
And it's interesting that, isn't it? Because I know that when I was 16, and probably the time when I was, you know, like I was teenagers all over the place, but actually I would listen to lots of songs that were kind of emotional breakup kind of songs, because I actually wanted to be in that experience, in the moment again, in that, and I'd often find that would almost have a cleansing kind of effect, and actually a quite healing effect, and then I'll be fine, you know, when I listen to that particular song, because then I've been in that kind of emotion. And I think that music has that, and then when you're up and you want to, or you're ready to go up, then it has that. So it's funny how music can somehow be very potent in that way, that the music can hold us and be present with us with that particular mood that we're in.
Yeah, well, it can almost be gentle, because, and I think Schopenhauer, Arthur Schopenhauer said it best, the German philosopher, where he said that music, when we listen to music and engage with music, it can essentially, and I'm just paraphrasing, but it can reproduce and help express all of the pain and inner stirrings of the human soul. Wow. But remote from its pain.
Oh, I like that.
So, yeah.
And I like that. And I actually think, you know, this ties it up beautifully, and I know we're running out of tape, but I've often felt, you know, for the singer who goes on that journey to hopefully find self, or to explore what their stuff is, or life is, or their art is, or whatever, it means that you can dance around in that kind of stuff without necessarily living it. I certainly feel now as a singer, as a coach now, I get to, my life doesn't depend on my music, so I can, when I'm singing, I can enjoy it, I can be present for it. I'm a better singer now than I was, and I can appreciate the songwriting. I'm better songwriting, probably. Actually, the songwriting was never a problem. It's the other kind of stuff, because the songs I never took claim any ownership of, because the songs I just capture like a fisherman, like lots of people say, you know, you just capture the song and it comes in and that's it. But I think that, you know, now I can just have far more joy and be more appreciative for that kind of stuff. Wow, you know what, David, it's been a real pleasure, it's been a real joy. Really wishing you all the best in terms of the studies and this amazing work that you're doing at Cambridge, and our ongoing conversation about people and healing, and I know there's amazing work that you've already kind of done, and the reviews and so on that you're doing. I'm very much looking forward to your books. I know no pressure there, but I'm very much looking forward to them, because I know that there's so much contribution there in terms from artists, from listeners' perspective, people are curious, from academics' perspective, and also from the perspective of lots of those people who can find, and specific groups of people who can find healing